Hello, my name is Stacy Scolton-Adeyemo, and this is my final assignment for AEP 855. Since I will be teaching third grade in the fall at a predominantly Chinese school here in Zhengzhou, China, I decided to kind of look at the gender roles and single child behavior that is existent within the Chinese education system and within China itself. I've been teaching in China for uh, 4 years now, and before that, I taught for 5 years in the United States. But in China, I've been teaching university students. In the States, I taught elementary. So I'm familiar with both elementary and Chinese students, but this is going to be a new experience, and so I thought this would be best to do some research before starting my new job. The first article I looked at really looked at child's play and exactly how it affected especially aggressive behavior. Uh, the researchers used interviews and behavioral observation basically to examine how Chinese children interact while playing. Uh, they stated that gender, age, group size, and parent-child interaction all have an impact on the child's behavioral patterns. Chinese parents remain immensely concerned with child discipline, orderliness, and self-control. So, and they are very concerned with training a child in the traditional moral values of respecting adults and cooperation. So this is basically just a little bit of information on how children are raised in China. Uh, but according to this study, they found that boys tend to be more aggressive in play than girls through the ages of 3 to 10. They found that girls have more altruistic and cooperative acts than boys during the ages of 3 through 10. They also found that for Chinese boys, ages 7 through 10, cooperative actions decrease drastically. Chinese females compared to male tend to be not only more cooperative but more altruistic as well. And among Chinese boys, physical assault and symbolic aggression remained constant, while for girls there is a slight increase as they enter middle childhood years. This may be due to Chinese children learning very early not to verbally insult someone. Also, according to the study, Chinese boys between the ages of 7 and 10 had the highest frequency of aggressive acts in the world. Yeah, that's right, in the world. So, of any other nation, Chinese boys had the highest frequency of aggressive acts. The authors believe that it was due to the belief of Chinese parents that horseplay and symbolic assertion are considered non-aggressive acts, while aggressive acts are intentional and hostile. So if the Chinese parents don't believe that horseplay and symbolic assertion are aggressive, they're not going to try to stop it. Chinese parents try to control the girls more than they do the boys, and both male and female Chinese children have a lot of pressure from their parents and society to achieve. They compete for respect, admiration, and social rank. Now, here are the other interesting things that I found within this article about the Chinese school environment. I found that corporal punishment, for example, standing in a corner, writing sentences, those things that are an absolute no-no for us in the American school system, are basically common forms of discipline in the Chinese educational system. Also found out that teachers are allowed to use objects like sticks and rulers, basically to force student obedience. So if they want to discipline them using a student getting paddled, that is perfectly acceptable for teachers. Also, another common practice would be that teachers will announce the grades to motivate students to improve. Because Chinese society is organized around an almost fanatical obsession with the child's classroom performance, most individuals remain anxious about their relative social position. And so these students are really, there's so much pressure on them, so they're very stressed out, and that could be part of the reason that the boys are so aggressive. Just a summary of that first article. Basically, the potential contradiction that can arise from asserting different values combined with a relentless emphasis on individual achievement virtually ensures Chinese youth will be aggressive in the pursuit of their personal interests while simultaneously adopting a posture of respectful cooperation. That means that a lot of times the students are going to, do what I want them to do, because they're supposed to be respectfully cooperative, but they also be very aggressive in getting what they're supposed to get done. Some of the leadership issues that arise just from this is that since Chinese parents don't really view aggression in the same way as us Westerners do, I have to be very upfront with my expectations at the beginning of the school year. I need to make sure that the students know that I will not tolerate any aggression, and I need to be very specific about what aggression is in my view, so that they understand when they get in trouble that they are not worried or confused as to why they're in trouble, but they know that this is why they're in trouble. And so I need to make sure that they understand my Western views on that, and I give them very specific examples and not just assume that they know. Also, though Chinese educational systems use corporal punishment, I have to still balance my Western culture with these ideals, and I have to figure out a way to get the students to perform despite those challenges. I cannot use corporal punishment. It's just not in me. I'm not used to it, and it's definitely not the way that I was raised. And so it's very hard for me to even think about using corporal punishment. And so I have to figure out a way to get my students to behave, to listen to me, and I have to figure out a way to manage my students while maintaining my position of power over them, and making sure that I can balance my Western culture with their Chinese culture and find a happy medium. And the students I will teach are in this middle childhood age, this age where they talked about in the study, where they're at the highest aggressive level and higher than any other nation. That really means I have to make sure that I am firm and consistent in my discipline. Because the Chinese children in general, boys and girls, are very aggressive. They're really wanting to get what they want to get, and they are very competitive then in that sense. I have to make sure that I am teaching them and that I'm very firm and consistent in the way that I discipline. The second article I looked at was about gender issues that are arising in China. Basically, from Confucian China to the 1980s, men have been regarded as far superior to women in China. To this day, China still holds many of those patriarchal beliefs. For the Chinese population, there are two sources of influence on gender attitudes. Number one, a domestic official culture promoted by the Chinese Communist Party, and in more recent years, the Western culture. So both Western culture and the Chinese Communist Party are kind of fighting with each other and creating some of these gender issues and influencing how they feel. Just as a little history of the roles in China, women's roles, before 1949, when China became a republic, women were considered far inferior to men. But after 1949, women gained more freedom and were valued on a more equal basis in the urban areas. Still within the rural areas, gender norms were upheld by many, but not all. Even now, within the rural Chinese areas, many of those gender traditional roles are still upheld. And now more rural Chinese are embracing gender egalitarianism, but sons are still preferred over daughters because they can actually take care of the family. The Communist Party, it really has valued schools as an important tool for indoctrinating young people to communist ideology and ethics. So the Communist Party was really the force that got schools up and running. They are the reason there's compulsory school here in China. But as China's ruling elite, the Communist Party has long recognized the socializing effects of schools and has used schools to promote gender equality, socializing, and young people to new values and attitudes toward women. So the Communist Party has really supported attitudes towards women. It just more was a voice thing. They were more vocal about it, but not truly supportive of it. Education and gender roles. According to this article, community education can support or deny gender stereotypes. Through the socialization process, students decide their own value systems. And in China, the more educated a student is, especially women, the more empowered they feel to embrace those gender egalitarian ideals. So, what's this mean for me as a leader in the classroom? Being a woman, I must help in educating those students on gender equality. I can show my students that I am just as intelligent as men and I can lead just as well. I must also realize that though China is beginning to open up to the idea of women's rights, men are still considered the superior gender. And so, in my dealing with students, I need to make sure that even when I'm talking to the boys, that they realize that I'm the leader and they are not. This article really reminded me a lot of our book and the chapter about women leadership. Um, Basically, China has been a patriarchal society for a lot longer than the U.S. has ever been. Even around. I mean, we're dating back years and years to the dynasties. So I believe it will take even more for their ideals to change. So even though the Communist Party was really supporting women's liberty and women's rights, I still think it's going to take a little bit in order for them to change and to really come to these ideals. Even within the university where I taught, girls got the majority of the scholarships. So it made me wonder just about Chinese, basically Chinese in general, if their statistics are the same as what our book said. Our book said that there's so many women getting degrees, getting their bachelor's and their master's and their doctorate, even more women than men, and yet less leadership roles are held by women than men. And so just knowing this and thinking about this, I wondered, I believe it's probably the same here in China, where, like I said, most of the women are getting scholarships here in China, and but it's a big jump. And I do think I think about I taught information networking and telecommunications at the university, and my classes were made up mostly of boys because in the Chinese viewpoint, boys go into computers and they do work in computers, and my students, when they first met me, were always very, very surprised that I was a female teaching computers or teaching anything to do with computers or business, because women just don't do that here in China. And so those are some of the issues. Gender equality is going to be something that I have to really work on and help make sure that I treat all my students as equal and give them all the best education experience that I can. Just real quick, I found these two articles. What observation studies can tell us about single-child play patterns, gender, and changes in Chinese society, and education and gender egalitarianism in the case of China. I found both of them basically by doing a search. I wanted to really look at gender issues, and so I did a search about gender issues within China, and I did that search in the Forsyth Library just to check it out. Thanks for listening.